The creation of GPDA's Instagram account has been followed with a post that scrutinised the FIA heavily, and now it's up to the governing body to respond to the accusations and the allegations that are made against them. With the drivers now united against the behaviour of the FIA, will Ben Sulayem feel even more pressure, and more importantly, will there be a change in the presidency, or at least in the direction in which the FIA will move? It goes without saying that the GPDA getting on social media, or more precisely with their Instagram account, has shown that something is brewing in the background, and now we've finally realised what it is. There is an official post that condemns the behaviour of the FIA, in which they have emphasised what type of circumstances the drivers are going through week in and week out when they're driving with speeds of up to 300 kilometres an hour and in between close walls that could be the difference between a career-ending injury or a moment embedded in history thanks to a legendary drive. In the statement, part of it said, "Our members are professional drivers racing in Formula 1, the pinnacle of international motorsport. They are gladiators, and every racing weekend they put on a great show for the fans." Furthermore, the GPDA has talked about the swearing incidents that have revolved primarily around Verstappen and then Leclerc, with the Monegasque apologising instantly and saying that he doesn't want to end up like Max, and in fact he didn't. The penalty for Verstappen stands as it is, serve community service, while the penalty for Leclerc was €10,000, with 5,000 of them suspended in the period of 12 months. When talking about this, the GPDA has thrown massive shade to the FIA and to its president Ben Sulayem regarding the tone with which he addresses the drivers. As the statement continued, "With regards to swearing, there is a difference between swearing intended to insult others and more casual swearing, such as you might use to describe bad weather or indeed an inanimate object such as a Formula 1 car or a driving situation. We urge the FIA president to also consider his own tone and language when talking to our member drivers, or indeed about them, whether in a public forum or otherwise. Further, our members are adults. They do not need to be given instructions via the media about matters as trivial as the wearing of jewellery and underpants." This goes to show that even the seven-time world champion has put his word in the GPDA statement, as we know that he went into somewhat of a combat with the FIA when it comes to the wearing of jewellery on the track or certain types of clothes that do not feel like proper ones for the sport he's participating in. Of course, Hamilton has laughed about this to a great extent, and he was allowed to wear the jewellery at the Monaco GP, with his exemption being extended by the FIA. What this goes to show is that the inconsistency of the FIA is now pretty visible, and the fact that some of the stewards are professional pundits and could have a bit of bias when it comes to bringing decisions on the track, such as Johnny Herbert, has also caused a lot of a stir on the grid. Nevertheless, there is one thing that the GPDA cannot understand, and that is how the use of the F word has glorified Günther Steiner, the former team principal of Haas, who used it to describe everything and made a figure out of himself in the documentary Drive to Survive. But of course, the other drivers using it to describe something accurately in the sport is now being penalised and not allowed. But then again, this starts up a whole new conversation that we would need days to analyse, so we'll just leave it as it is. The F word rule doesn't seem to be applied the same to all of the Formula 1 drivers and personnel. The letter didn't stop there either, as it continued to talk about the monetary fines that they feel are not appropriate for the sport, because for the past 3 years they've been calling upon Ben Sulayem to share the details and strategy regarding how the FIA's financial fines are allocated and where the funds are spent. This is something that has been brought up by Verstappen when he was fined after touching the Mercedes wing after qualifying back in 2021 in Brazil, something that brought a €50,000 penalty. And the three-time world champion said that he hopes the FIA will have a nice dinner and maybe then invite him as well. Furthermore, the letter wrote, "We have also relayed our concerns about the negative image financial fines brings to the sport. We once again request that the FIA president provide financial transparency and direct open dialogue with us. All stakeholders, FIA, F1, the teams and the GPDA should jointly determine how and where the money is spent for the benefit of our sport. The GPDA wishes to collaborate in a constructive way with all the stakeholders, including the FIA president, in order to promote our great sport for the benefit of everyone who works in it, pays for it, watches it and indeed loves it. We are playing our part. There is no doubt that improvements from the FIA do need to be made, and whether that's in the stewarding process, which Jos Verstappen and George Russell feel need to change massively, or in the penalty distribution throughout the races, it's inevitable that changes are coming, and we hope it's for the better of the sport. This is the pinnacle of motorsport racing, and now that we're going to be sold out from fans wanting to see close racing, the last thing that we need to witness is political problems like the ones that are currently being presented by the FIA. This has been addressed by Johnny Herbert, the steward in question, and when talking about this situation to a greater extent, the Brit has responded heavily to the accusations of Jos Verstappen that he shouldn't be a steward because of his position in the paddock. As he stated, "As I have always said, I am Johnny Herbert, the steward and the professional during a race weekend, and Johnny Herbert, a pundit at other times who expresses what he thinks. When I am a steward, I do not express any opinions. Everyone has an opinion. Martin Brundle has an opinion. Why can't I when I'm not on the racetrack? The racetrack has been my world for 50 years. If I don't quite agree with what I see on the racetrack, I will say so. It is not just Max. I will criticise anyone if I feel it is warranted." Jos has always been very outspoken about what is happening at Red Bull. Is that his position to be? It is all very similar. If you have an opinion and you want to make it, then you can. We must add the incident with the president of the FIA talking about situations that weren't in his jurisdiction to talk about, such as the fact that he publicly spoke about how the sport should not overestimate itself when it comes to being sold. The F1 has received a hefty amount from a Saudi Arabian fund in order to sell its rights, something that Liberty Media said won't happen as they have huge plans for this sport. And Stefano Domenicali felt like the comments from Ben Saliam have made things worse for the investors, because if the FIA believes that the sport is not worth the offer that it's been given, which was around $30 billion, then the investments could very well stop. On top of that, there is a situation with the nationality of the drivers that has been raised quite frequently in the previous period, and that is the fact that Verstappen has been penalised for something that the rest of the grid and the experts believe wouldn't happen if he was British. He was constantly criticised by the British media, and his drive in Brazil was a perfect response. But when talking about it and when being asked to give a proper opinion on it, the soon-to-be four-time world champion has gone on to say, "I know what most people are like. It's nothing new. Last year was perfect, so it must have hurt a lot for many people that they couldn't say anything negative. Now they've got the chance to say something, so they are all coming out of the woodwork. At the end of the day, I've got the wrong passport for this paddock." With all this in mind, do you think that the GPDA's post will actually trigger some changes from the FIA? And more importantly, do you think that Ben Saliam will finally step down as the president of the governing body after all the criticism he's received? Let us know in the comments below. And if you're interested in Hamilton's early exit from Mercedes being a realistic scenario in the last 3 races of the season, make sure to check out the video that's appearing on your screen right now.